Vice Chair, it looks like we've had a few more commissioners join us.
Okay.
And I did notice that Commissioner Joseph Falls had not pre-registered for the Zoom link tonight. So I'm not sure of his availability, but it looks like we do have a quorum. And I know
Okay.
Porter has pushed us out live, so we are streaming.
All right. Well, I'll go ahead and get started. All right. Welcome, everyone, to the December 14th Human Relations Commission meeting. I am Vice Chair Commissioner Amber Sellers, and we will call our meeting to order. First item on the agenda. Oh, Scott, do we don't need to do the.
Yes, I do have
Okay.
some introductory Open Meetings Act comments, and I will go ahead and read those. Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Scott Wagner. I'm an analyst in the City Attorney's Office, and I'm going to provide a few procedural reminders for tonight's virtual meeting. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast on the city's YouTube channel. During the meeting, when you are not participating, please mute yourself by clicking on the microphone icon found on the lower left-hand side of the Zoom menu. When you are muted, a red line will appear over the icon. Muting your microphone during the meeting will make it easier for everyone to hear. You'll just have to remember to unmute if and when you want to speak. In some cases, I may mute or unmute people as needed to minimize distractions during the meeting. Please remember to state your name every time you speak for the benefit of those listening remotely. You could turn your video camera off or on by clicking on the video icon in the menu. For the purposes of this public meeting, when you are not participating in the meeting, please keep your video on. When you are not participating, it's okay to turn your video off. You will still be able to listen to the meeting when your video is off. If you are participating by phone, you can click *6 to unmute your phone. For those using Zoom, somewhere on your screen, you'll see a choice to toggle between speaker and gallery view. Speaker view shows the active speaker. Gallery view tiles all the meeting participants. Board members and city staff members, you must state your name and title each time you speak. All motions will need to be stated clearly. After a motion is made and seconded, the chair will call on board members individually to provide their vote. Madam Chair, you will then need to announce whether the motion carried and the count of the vote. When public comment is sought on an item, individuals participating via Zoom should raise your hand with the raise your hand feature. Individuals will be called upon by name in the order they appear on the meeting host screen. When you are called on, please unmute your listening device and state your name before speaking. The chair will then call for any in-person public comment for those without access to technology options. Staff will then direct you to the podium to speak, following social distancing and safety protocols, and the regular 3-minute time limit will apply. Thank you, Madam Chair. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Sellers, and thank you, Scott, for that introduction. So first item on the agenda is the approval of our November 9th minutes. Everyone should have received your meeting packet. Please take a moment to review the minutes from last month's meeting. And then once completed, if I could have a motion to approve the minutes if there are no corrections to be made. All right, if I could have a motion to approve the minutes as presented, if there are no corrections that need to be made.
This is Commissioner Stevens. I motion to approve the minutes.
All right, I have a motion from Commissioner Stevens. Can I have a second?
This is Commissioner Barnett. I second the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Barnett. The motion has been, there's been moved and properly second to accept the November 9th minutes as presented. We'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Logan?
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Commissioner Haswood?
Aye.
Commissioner Bluxon?
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens?
Aye.
And Commissioner Sellers? Aye, with a total vote of 6-0. Motion carries unanimously. All right, next on our agenda items under Part B, number 1, introduction of our new commissioner. So I will now give the floor to Commissioner Christina Haswood. Commissioner, you now have the floor.
Hello, Christina Haswood, Commissioner. Again, my name is Christina Haswood. I'm so excited and thankful to be here today. I was born and raised here in Lawrence, Kansas. I am an Indigenous woman, Navajo from the Dene Nation. I went through K through 12 here, and I even started my higher education at Haskell Nations University, where I went on to carry on at Arizona State University with my bachelor's in public health, and just recently graduated with my master's in public health at the University of Kansas Medical Center. So when I graduated, the pandemic happened, and it was a pivotal moment in our community. It was really great to see our community come together through the bareness of everything in the beginning, but also keeping forward with the momentum of things. Also, I'm not too sure if it's okay for me to disclose, but I'm also the representative-elect for the Kansas House Representative in District 10. So I am just so excited to be here today. I'm so excited to represent my community and be a voice for the city of Lawrence. So thank you so much for having me.
This is Commissioner Stevens. I'm sorry. I just wanted to welcome you. What is it, Representative and Commissioner Haswood? Welcome to the commission.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. And I hope, this is Commissioner Sellers. I would hope that Commissioner Stevens' comments are echoed across the board with all the commissioners here. We are excited to have you here on the commission, Representative-elect, and I know you have a tall task in front of you starting on January 11th, and we wish you very well. So welcome aboard. So if it wasn't exciting to have a new member, we also get to top off our December meeting with election of officers. With the resignation of Commissioner Pryor, we had a vacancy in our chair position, and so we are now electing for the chair and vice chair at this meeting. So I'll give everybody a little time to think and reflect, and then I will call to open the nominations for chair. So if there's any questions anyone has in regards to duties, responsibilities, please take a moment to ask those questions to our liaisons here on the call. All right, seeing none, I will now open the floor for nominations for chair of the Human Relations Commission. Nominations, the floor is now open.
This is Commissioner Stevens. I move, to nominate Commissioner Sellers as the chair of the Human Relations Commission. Thank you.
Commissioner Logan, I second the nomination for Commissioner Sellers as chair of the Human Relations Commission.
Now, Casey and Scott, I know how this goes in parliamentary. I don't know if I can ask myself, do I accept the nomination? But this is Commissioner Sellers. I do accept the nomination as chair for the Human Relations Commission.
Commissioner Sellers, this is Casey Toomey, Assistant City Manager. You might just clarify there aren't any other nominations, just to make sure.
True, to be in protocol. Are there any other nominations for chair of the Human Relations Commission? Are there any other nominations for chair for the Human Relations Commission? Are there any other nominations for chair of the Human Relations Commission? All right. Nominations for chair are now officially closed. We will now take a roll call vote. The vote is to affirm Commissioner Sellers as chair of the Human Relations Commission. Commissioner Logan.
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett.
Aye.
Commissioner Haswood.
Aye.
Commissioner Bluxham.
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens.
Aye.
And Commissioner Sellers. I would be funny and abstain, but I'll say aye. So with a unanimous vote of 6-0, our new chair for the Human Relations Commission is Commissioner Amber Sellers. All right. Moving on to the position of vice chair. I am now opening the floor for nominations for vice chair of the Human Relations Commission. Do we have any nominations for vice chair of the Human Relations Commission?
This is Commissioner Bloxham. I am going to move that Katie Barnett be nominated for vice chair.
There's a motion.
This is Commissioner Stevens. I second that.
It has been moved and seconded. Commissioner Barnett, do you accept the nomination as vice chair?
This is Commissioner Barnett. I accept the nomination.
Are there any other nominations for vice chair of the Human Relations Commission? Are there any other nominations for vice chair of the Human Relations Commission? Are there any other nominations for vice chair of the Human Relations Commission? Nominations for vice chair of Human Relations Commission is now closed. We will now go to a roll call vote. Commissioner Logan.
Aye.
Commissioner Haswood.
Aye.
Commissioner Bluxham.
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens.
Aye.
Commissioner Sellers. Aye. Commissioner Barnett.
Aye.
With a unanimous vote of 6-0, our vice chair for the Human Relations Commission is Commissioner Katie Barnett. Congratulations, Commissioner Barnett. That now concludes our election of officers. Round of applause for everyone. All right, moving on to action item number 3 under the agenda, receive the monthly case update report. Is Ms. Afoka, Ms. Elizabeth, you are here. All right, Ms. Afoka, you have the floor.
Thank you. This is Elizabeth Afoka. I'm the supervising city prosecutor. And currently in the Human Relations Office, we have one open investigation that is an allegation of housing discrimination, and the basis is disability. Since our last meeting in November, we had one case that was resolved with a determination of no probable cause. And since our last meeting as well, we had several inquiries, but they were determined not to be discrimination related. And I'll just describe how they were handled. We had an employee who worked for a bank in Missouri call because he had a client who is vision impaired and wanted some assistance to go through the process of buying a home in Lawrence. And we referred him to Independence Inc. and Housing and Credit Counseling. We had several calls to check references and the status of a job application. Those were referred to Human Resources. One citizen called because they had water leaks that the landlord was not fixing, and they were concerned because their water bill was $5,000. They were referred to code enforcement and housing and credit counseling. Another citizen emailed the Human Relations Office, and she believed that she had been treated unfairly by a mortgage loan consultant, as well as the Topeka Housing Authority. And we referred her to the Kansas Human Rights Commission, which is the state agency that handles discrimination complaints, because we didn't have jurisdiction for that because everything happened in Topeka. One citizen called and wanted a punch card for the aquatic center. They were referred to Parks and Rec. Another citizen called because the rental fees were being increased, and they were referred to Housing and Credit Counseling. We had a person call who currently lives in Wichita, Kansas, and had some questions about whether her landlord has to allow her an emotional support animal and whether they could charge a pet deposit. Also, that was outside of our jurisdiction, but we did refer her to Housing Credit Counseling and then HUD, which is the federal agency that handles discrimination complaints. One citizen called about PURA, something related to employment rights, and they were referred to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, a federal agency that deals with employment rights. A citizen wanted to speak with Mark Bradford, the current fire chief. They were referred to Lawrence Douglas County Fire and Medical. One citizen wanted to talk to Human Resources for job verification. They were referred to Human Resources. Another citizen called, believes her landlord is committing fraud. She was referred to the police department and Housing and Credit Counseling. A citizen called and wanted to know if, as a subleaser, he was required to leave when the original lease was up, wait until the eviction process happened. And he was referred to Housing and Credit Counseling. Another citizen called, the landlord was not fixing the heater and also was concerned about some noise complaints from neighbors. He was referred to Housing and Credit Counseling. And the last call was a robocall that our Amazon account had been hacked, and we simply hung up on that call. So those are the list of inquiries that we received since the last meeting. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, well, if there are no questions, oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if there are no questions, I'll give it back to you, Commissioner Sellers.
Thank you, Ms. Hafoka. This is Commissioner Sellers. Thank you, everyone. Looking at, and just to note that the report is in our packet. Moving on to action item number 4, receive staff report on code review of 2 sections of City Code 14-412, which is urination and defecation in public, and City Code 14-602, indecent exposure.
Yes, my name is Scott Wagner. I'm a legal analyst with the City Attorney's Office, Chair Sellers, and I have the staff report on this item, which was also included in the packet posted with tonight's agenda, and you should have received the entire packet, hopefully, as well tonight. Just a little bit of background in terms of how we got to this point in talking about these 2 sections of the city code on tonight's agenda. If you recall, back on June 11th, we had a special meeting of the Lawrence Human Relations Commission that was called by then Chair Katie Barnett. And at that meeting, we heard from Mayor Ananda, the mayor at the time, who made a statement at the June 2nd, 2020 meeting of the Lawrence City Commission. And at that City Commission meeting, Mayor was really reacting to a statement or to the George Floyd incident, among other things going on in the country at the time, and had a call for various actions of the city and of the Human Relations Commission and the Community Police Review Board. And one of those tasks was for the Human Relations Commission to review city ordinances using a tool created by the Government Alliance on Race and Equity, or GARE. And I believe that night we also heard a presentation from Casey Toomey on exactly what GARE is. So we received a little bit of background on that. Just a little bit of background on the City of Lawrence Forum of Government. If you listen to the December 1st remarks of the outgoing Mayor Ananda, one of the things she reflected on during her time as mayor and kind of called for action for the next commission and mayor to take up was a review of the city's form of government and a perhaps strengthening of the role of the mayor. And so she has called for a task force to be created to do just that. And there perhaps has been a little bit of disconnect in communication, I would say, between the actions of the governing body, which you as a Human Relations Commission are an advisory body to, and maybe that initial call for action. The mayor of Lawrence in the city code really is just a first among equals. They really have no other duties in the city code aside from running the meeting, much like our chair does at our Human Relations Commission meeting. They also sign ordinances of the city and resolutions of the city. But aside from that, there's really not a whole lot of other duties assigned to the mayor. So on further review of that call to action, the full governing body on June 16th kind of took that list of the mayors, and the city manager put that call to action into a 12-point plan. And then on June 16th, the commission reviewed that plan and adopted it. And then it was further refined on July 21st, 2020. And we included that staff memo in your packet as well. And task number 1 of that 12-point plan is indeed a review of and possible decriminalization of behaviors related to houselessness, drug use or addiction, mental health, and non-person crimes, and removal of fines associated with those items. And according to that adopted plan by the governing body, this task has been assigned to city staff by the city commission. A further kind of review of that assignment, and it was anticipated that that review would come back to the full governing body here in December. But at the October 20th meeting of the city commission, a contract was awarded to Citygate Associates LLC to provide a comprehensive review of the Lawrence, Kansas Police Department. And one of the tasks of that contract is to further report on the 12-point plan as adopted by the governing body. And during public comment that night during the adoption of the Citygate contract, it was discussed if a review of ordinances would be included with the consultant's review. And indeed, that is one of their tasks that they'll be looking at. Certainly, they won't be looking at every ordinance in the 1,200-page city code or every statute of the Kansas statutes, but that will be part of their analysis and recommendations, including engaging with the public, which I would very much imagine would be an engagement with the Human Relations Commission. But as we promised during the October 19th meeting of this body, we do have these 2 ordinances before you tonight for discussion. At this time, city staff is not recommending any changes to these ordinances pending the report of the Citygate LLC facts and findings from their study of the police department. So tonight, as requested, we provided a copy of City Code 14-412, which has to do with urination and defecation in the public, and 14-602 relating to indecent exposure. Our municipal court administrator provided citation data from 2013 to roughly the first part of November on the number of citations issued and the number of convictions on those 2 particular city code sections. So we have those before you tonight as well. And that concludes my staff report on this topic. And we have, Elizabeth Ufoka in our prosecutor's office who has, expertise in handling prosecutions of those 2 particular sections of the city code that can answer more technical questions on that aspect of the code. And I will turn it back to you, Chair, for any questions.
Thank you, Scott. This is Commissioner Sellers. I'm going to open the floor to any questions that anyone may have for Scott or Ms. Hafoka. I have a question in regards to, because I'm looking at the data from 2019 to, well, I'm looking at it all, but specifically from last year and this year. And my question is in regards to those public convictions. If you don't have the information today, that's fine. But do these convictions, are we looking at, it's mostly fines of some sort, or, and do we know what the fine values are? And if you don't have that information, is there any possible way we could get that?
This is Supervising City Prosecutor Elizabeth Afoka. The general fine penalty for these offenses is $200 plus court costs. The fines can be either paid or people have the opportunity to do community service work, and they get credited $10 per hour of the hours they work. That's done through the Douglas County Community Service Program, which the district court and municipal court uses. In addition to the fine, they would generally be placed on a non-reporting probation with a suspended jail sentence. So as long as they can go the probation term without any new law violations, they either do the community service or pay the fine and court costs, then the jail sentence is not imposed. Does that answer your question?
This is Commissioner Sellers. It does. And in regards to the non-reporting probation, does that, just for a point of clarity, that type of probation does not impede on one's ability to like register to vote or anything like that, does it?
No, these are misdemeanor convictions, so that would not affect a person's ability to vote. The non-reporting probation is basically no new law violations, fulfill the orders of the sentence, but the individual is not required to report to any sort of probation officer. They're free to leave the state, carry on about their life, as long as they don't get in trouble, and then they either pay the fine or do the community service.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions for Ms. Afoka or for Scott in regards to the agenda item presented to us? Hearing none. This is Commissioner Sellers. I'm interested in being able to take a deeper dive into the report from Citygate, because I caution having any more additional action items on this until we've all had an opportunity to look at that report. I know from my notes, the task given to us was to review the language of the ordinance and come back with renewed language. And so I want to give those opportunity who have renewed language, or if they have an opportunity to, if they have that available, that they would want to share that. But I think there's an opportunity here for us to review the report. And by reviewing that report, it may present information that will be beneficial in us moving forward on this. I have, as far as the recommendation that's presented in front of us, I'm in agreement with it. And I caution us moving forward on this in any other way, but until we've had some time to sit down and read through that report. But I'd like to hear from everyone else as far as their thoughts on the recommendation presented to us on this. Not all at once. Okay. So not hearing none. Outside of just receiving the report, Scott, is there, oh, sorry, Commissioner Barnett, my apologies.
Commissioner Barnett here. So I'm trying to understand these, there's this, I clicked through all the links on the staff report that's provided to us, and, the urination, defecation in public is like obviously a very small part of what we're supposed to be looking at, or what Citygate is going to look at, our ordinances as a whole. We're going to present a report, but this agenda, we're going to review their report that they present, but this agenda item is very specific to these two offenses. So are we talking at all about the general report?
For this is specific to this agenda item. So, okay. Because if we go back to, and I want to say we started in the October meeting discussing this, and then that for the December meeting that we would come back with renewed language in regards to the public comment that was made in regards to these two ordinances and the disparate impact that they have on certain populations. So the goal was for those commissioners to review the two ordinances and to present any renewed language that they would have for these ordinances. And to knowledge or to date, I don't believe any commissioners presented any renewed language. I could be wrong, but Scott, did you receive anything from anyone in regards to?
This is Scott Wagner, legal analyst. No, I have not received any other communications from other commissioners regarding any additional or proposed language regarding these two ordinances of the city code.
Thank you, Scott. This is Commissioner Sellers. So I think at this point, it's just a matter of, as the ordinances are presented based on the data that's been shared with us, do we feel like there is a need to do a deeper dive or further examination of these two ordinances? As far as, do we feel like there's a disparate impact on certain populations, or do we feel comfortable with the report that was given to us at this time?
This is Commissioner Bloxham. What I got from the report, in addition to that, I mean, I think this is a good place to have conversation, but basically what I got is that because we weren't being directed by the commission as a whole to review this, that they're going to wait until this other report comes out. I guess I need clarification as a commissioner on what we're being asked to do, because the staff report in regards to that ordinance basically says we didn't ask you to do it, so we're going to hold off until this other report comes back. And so I guess if we could just get some more direction from staff on exactly what role this commission is playing in reviewing ordinances or asking for community input, I think that would be helpful for me, because it's gotten pretty fuzzy over the last few months, if that makes any sense.
Thank you, Commissioner Bloxham. This is Commissioner Sellers. And I'll yield to Casey and Scott on this. I will say, based on the notes that I took from our November meeting, that we wanted city staff to go back and pull those two ordinances. And I know I had made the request that the data be pulled from 2013 into now in regards to convictions, just so I could have some knowledge as far as what it was looking like in trends. And then I did ask about convictions and fines assessed to it and whatnot. So based on the notes that I had from our meeting, that we were to come back with any suggested renewed language. I understand that the report states that it was not tasked for us to do it, but based on the request made during the public comments that Mr. Flowers made, that we said that we would ask for the city to pull those numbers, to pull the ordinances for us to review. And if there's any comments that any commissioners wanted to make in regards to language that they would direct that to city staff. Now, that was my interpretation, and that's the charge that I took. I can't speak for any of the other commissioners on the board.
This is Commissioner Barnett. I wasn't here at that meeting, but I sure would like to hear from Dr. Mohammed, Scott, and Elizabeth, or sorry, Casey, and tell me what we're supposed to do, please, so we can move along.
I'll take a shot. I think Scott's report was attempting to kind of say, respond to two things. One, a request by this commission to put these items on an agenda and provide the data that was requested that Commissioner Sellers mentioned. So we tried to do that in that report. And then two, we went back and looked at what the direction was from the commission, because there was discussion, the city commission. We went back and looked at what the city commission's direction was. I don't think I introduced myself, for the record. Casey Toomey, Assistant City Manager. So we went back and looked at what the city commission's direction was to this board. I think there was some confusion because, as Scott mentioned, the mayor came and talked with the Human Relations Commission as the mayor and outlined what her thoughts were. And then that's distinguished between that and the direction that the commission as a whole took, as Commissioner Bluxham mentioned. So we attempted to kind of clarify that what the direction to the Human Relations Commission was from the City Commission, and also respond to the request to come back with these two items for you all to discuss. I think, Scott, also the conversation about the Citygate report, which, just as a point of clarification, it's underway. So what was attached to your agenda packet is the contract between the city and Citygate. They're conducting their work, and when that work concludes, there will be a report, and included in that report, as Scott outlined, is going to be a conversation about ordinances that relate to the first task on that 12-point plan of the City Commission, that talks about decriminalization of behaviors associated with houselessness. That is, I think, the way I would summarize everything. I don't know if that helps. So as far as what you all are tasked for to do tonight is, one, decide if you want to take action prior to that report coming back from Citygate. Or option two is discuss it here tonight and say, we have Citygate, another partner, we'll call it, in this effort. And rather than duplicate their work, we can postpone this discussion until Citygate's completed their work and has a report back to the City Commission that may better inform the work that you all want to do or give you something to react to. That's my attempt at a summary. Helpful? Hopefully.
Commissioner Barnett, thank you. Casey, I appreciate it. Yes. I would just say, for the record, I would really like to, I believe that as things are evolving locally, as we have our kiosk project that gets distributed, as the Citygate report comes out, and as certain issues come up in just discourse, we may have more requests from the public for things like this. And I think, sort of to what you said, Casey, we can put this on a back burner. We know it is something that we would like to review. And once we kind of get all the information together from our kiosk project and everything, I'm certainly not trying to prolong meaningful action by this commission, but I also don't want to spin our wheels and make an informed decision. So I would just propose that we kind of table this, wait for the report, wait for our kiosk results to come back, and then kind of revisit this in the next few months, or whenever the Citygate report is to come out.
This is Commissioner Stevens. I agree, because didn't the city already say that they didn't ask us to do it? So I'm just wondering that any communication or any conversation we have, they're going to be like, okay, we didn't ask for your opinion, so we may as well wait until we have something to argue about, right?
Point made, Commissioner Stevens and Commissioner Barnett. This is Commissioner Sellers. And I would echo those sentiments. I think definitely waiting until we have the Citygate report will be able to give us more information to be more informed so that we can move forward on these items with some intentionality. I think that, like I said, the desire is there and the effort is there. But I would be interested in having that report and capturing as much information as possible before we make an informed decision, especially one of this magnitude. And we know that the information that will come from that report will have some benefit to us, and even more globally, not just necessarily to these two specific ordinances, but I know as we look at just looking at the ordinance that governs our duties and responsibilities. So there's something to be said about tabling this, as Commissioner Barnett said, and waiting for that report to come out, and then carving out some time for us to really synthesize the data and move forward with some actionable items. So, Casey, Scott, do we know approximately when the report will be handed to the commission, or do we have an approximate date?
This is Casey Toomey. Scott, I do not. I don't know if you happen to know that, or Maria or Elizabeth, if you've heard. I'm sorry, I don't know.
This is Scott Wagner, legal analyst. I think there was a timeline of rough deliverables in one of the staff reports, and I can certainly find that out and email that out to the group.
Okay. Because then that'll help prepare the commission. This is Commissioner Sellers, by the way. This would help prepare the commissioners at least to get an idea of a timeline of when we expect to get the report, and to prepare for everyone to prepare themselves on what it is that we hope to get out of it, to go back and review those 12 action items, and maybe even do some personal homework in regards to what we hope to accomplish from that, or things that we can highlight as or prioritize for this work. So so it sounds like we need a motion in regards to this action item to further action or postpone any further action until the Citygate report has been received by the Commissioner's office.
This is Commissioner Bloxham. Can I add one more little thing in here, just as point of conversation? Because we're not sure of what exactly Citygate is going to be studying, and surely they're not going to pull through every ordinance. Is there something that we could do as a commission to assure, part of our 12 points that was highlighted was that we start conversations with citizens. And so this forum is a good place to do that. And I believe that Mr. Flowers has been a participant and has brought concerns. Is there any way that we can assure that Citygate looks at these two items, since we've shared, that they're actually going to come back specifically about these two ordinances, if that makes sense?
This is Assistant City Manager Casey Toomey. I certainly think we can convey that to our city staff. That's the project team working with Citygate.
Thank you. And one more item of clarification. Is it my understanding that these 12 action items were passed from the commission to this body, or was that never done? Because I think that's going to save some time and discussion and understanding of this body moving forward. And of course, Dr. Mohammed, I can't wait to hear from you and get your kind of perspective and take. But I think we invest a lot of time in this commission, and I want to make sure that we're doing exactly what we were asked, if that makes sense.
This is Scott Wagner, legal analyst. Commissioner Bloxham, personally, I think that was probably one of the disconnects with this body, that we never did as staff take that 12-point plan as adopted by the commission and present you guys with a staff report. I think we got busy as staff kind of following up with the monthly tasks that this body was working on, and that was a disconnect, I would say. And I think as to your questions a minute ago, I think on the next agenda item, we'll get a little more clarity on this board's duties and roles moving forward, as we have Dr. Muhammad now on staff with us. So I think you'll hopefully feel a renewed sense of a purpose and clarity here.
This is Assistant City Manager Casey Toomey. I would just add that I agree with what Scott said, and I think we could do that. And maybe we'll have that as kind of the next part of our next agenda item conversation. But just to get right to the point, no, the 12 points of that 12-point plan are not all the responsibility of this commission. I think Commissioner Bloxham, you mentioned the one that was, which was to have listening sessions, or I think that was the one that was referred or assigned or referenced the Human Relations Commission. The other point were not directed directly to the Human Relations Commission. Sorry for that. Directed directly there. But Scott, did you look like you want to add?
This is Scott Wagner. No, I think I forgot to add, Chair Sellers, that no action is really posted on the agenda except for receiving tonight's staff report. So I don't believe there is a vote needed on this item.
Okay. But can we at least have the minutes reflect that we wanted to postpone and to actually note in there, Commissioner, this is Commissioner Sellers, by the way, that we wanted to note Commissioner Bloxham's request that the Citygate report does highlight those two areas with the ordinances as mentioned. All right, are there any other questions or comments in regards to this action, to this agenda item?
Is there going to be any public comment on this?
We will have, this is Commissioner Sellers. Mr. Flowers, we will have public comments at the end once we've gone through our agenda items.
So there's not going to be comment, like the public's not allowed to comment on this specific item?
I think at that point in the public comment time that you can refer, if you want to refer to anything on the agenda, you can at that time, but not as we go through the agenda items. It would help if I'd unmute. Moving on to agenda item number 5, discussion of roles and responsibilities of the Human Relations Commission under Chapter 10 of the City Code. Action item is to direct staff as appropriate.
So this is Casey Toomey, Assistant City Manager, and I'll have the staff report for you all this evening. So we'll try to put a memo on the agenda, and apologize for the late hour. We had some scheduling challenges of getting staff all together on our end, and wanted to have up-to-date information for you all. So apologize again, but I'll just try to walk you through the memo in case you haven't had time to look at it. But just to refresh, back at your office, a question was raised about the role of the commission in investigating complaints of discrimination in employment, public accommodation, or housing. And there was discussion about a change in process where members of the Human Relations Commission had been provided an opportunity to review the final investigation reports of staff prior to those reports being submitted to the city attorney, who also is the director of human relations and who under the code makes the determination of probable cause. Staff was asked to prepare a report on the timeline of the change and how the code was interpreted. And Scott Wagner, our legal analyst, had provided that report back to you all in October. He reported that the change had been made in the past few years by our city attorney, who also serves as the director of human relations by the code, and that while it was a past practice of the director, a review of the code revealed that it was not a requirement outlined in the city code. So there's a code provision that Scott had cited, and I repeated that for you all tonight in the memo that says, upon completion of an investigation, the investigator shall within 5 business days prepare a final investigation report and present it to the director for his or her review. And so that was the code interpretation, was that meant the report went from the investigator to the director. So our director, Tony Wheeler, was unable to attend our meeting tonight, and she had some personal matters to attend to, but I visited with her last week about this matter, and want to acknowledge the fact that Scott, when he presented his report back in October, was speaking on behalf of the department. He is empowered to do that as in his role here with the commission. But in my conversations with Tony, she explained that her interpretation at the time was based on what the code required, and mentioned that over time, the participation levels of commissioners sort of waxed and waned. There were times when there were commissioners that were very involved, and that 5-day timeline wasn't an issue. And then there were times when that 5-day timeline was more of a challenge to meet. So she also visited with me a little bit about the value added of the commission review and how that kind of varied over time. And so some of those were the reasons that that she explained to me. So just wanted to provide that a little bit of context to you all. But I also wanted to move forward and talk about how staff, with our new Director of Equity and Inclusion, Dr. Faris Muhammad, who's on our call, when he came on board, we knew that there was going to be a need to look at our Chapter 10 and who was going to be responsible for what. So as I mentioned, Dr. Muhammad started here in this with the city on November 9th. And after giving him a little time to get settled and start meeting folks in the community, we did get a group of staff together to look at Chapter 10 and started conversations about those responsibilities. So want to be direct and clear that Dr. Muhammad will be taking over the role of staff liaison to this Human Relations Commission. And I put in the memo effective in January. I do want to just help him not have a heart palpitation and think that I'm going to just leave him. So I'll continue on in a support role, but we'll make that transition, and so will Scott, Maria, and Elizabeth. They'll continue on in their roles. So, but I did just want to be clear. I know in the past that maybe our communication of things that we know at the staff level, we haven't done necessarily a good job of clearly articulating for all of you. So wanted to make sure that I did that. Those initial conversations also revealed some other sections of Chapter 10 that we as staff think could use some additional review. So we haven't completed that review, obviously, or those conversations, but that, along with some other items that I'm going to talk about in just a minute, I think make it clear that it is probably a good time to talk about Chapter 10 in its entirety. I might just pause though first and let Dr. Muhammad have a chance to introduce himself, and maybe he can fill you in a little bit on his background and maybe where he's been before he came to work for us here in the city. So Dr. Muhammad, I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Assistant City Manager Casey. My name is Dr. Faris Muhammad. I'm the Director of Equity and Inclusion for the City of Lawrence. I, as mentioned in the report here, started last month on the 9th of November. Prior to my role here, I did serve as the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer with the City of Peoria, Illinois. And in that role, I did serve and wore several hats in that role. One of them was to serve as the Mayor's Advisory Commission for Citizens with Disabilities, in addition to the Fair Housing Commission, in addition to the Fair Employment Commission, which has a lot of overlapping roles and responsibilities of this commission here. And the key, the larger overwhelming part of my jobs and duties with the City of Peoria was to oversee the Equal Opportunity Office, which did hear and adhere to cases for complaints from citizens. So any citizen within the city of Peoria, which was 115,000 or so citizens, if they had any type of complaints related to fair housing, wrongful termination, or public accommodation related matters, they can file a complaint with my office and then go through the process of investigating, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm happy to be here and help Casey transition out of her role and me transition into this role to be a liaison for this commission, and looking forward to being as instrumental as I possibly can be. So thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you,
Is
Dr. Mohammed.
Commissioner Stevens. Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to say welcome, Dr. Mohammed.
So this is Casey Toomey, Assistant City Manager. Thank you, Dr. Mohammed, for introducing yourself. And I was thinking that maybe for the benefit of you and our new Commissioner Haswood, it might be helpful for us to spend some time, if we have time at the end of our meeting, to introduce all of the rest of the members to you and Commissioner Haswood. So if we have time, we can come back. So in addition to kind of talking about our staff roles under Chapter 10, there's some other things that are going on that, again, I think lend themselves to a more systematic or holistic conversation about Chapter 10. And the biggest one is the city's strategic plan. And so hopefully you all are aware that the city's been working on adopting a strategic plan. It was formally adopted in October. There's still some work that's happening on developing key performance indicators. So those kind of measures of how we know that we're achieving success or making progress. And then identifying strategies and key activities. The work that has been done, though, is identification of 5 outcome areas and 6 commitments. And so the way that I would briefly summarize is the outcome is the what that we're going to do as a city, and the commitments are the how. And one of our commitments is equity and inclusion. So the thought is, in all of the work that the city does, one of the hows how we're going to do that work is with equity and inclusion in mind. And so I think that's definitely an area where there's overlap with the work that you all do. And so with that strategic plan in place, but still kind of in its formulating stage, I think there's definitely an opportunity to spend time as a commission, particularly with now that you have a new chair and vice chair, and now that we have Dr. Mohammed on board, to spend time as a group looking at that strategic plan and looking through those outcomes and those commitments, and trying to identify the role for this group. So rather than maybe look back and go backwards, let's spend some time together figuring out where we move forward together and what role there is. And there definitely, are certain things that the city does not do all of this work alone, obviously. We rely on citizens like you all, whether through advisory boards or other agencies in the community or other partners to help us with this work. So I think there's definitely opportunities for those conversations to happen. I think that's all of the items that I touched on in the memo, but that's the report. We did provide a link or attempted to Chapter 10 of the code that does articulate the current roles and duties of the commission, and we could certainly walk through that if you'd like. And then also a link to the city strategic plan where you can find a good report that shows what those outcome areas are and what those commitments are. And then also just links back to the prior agenda items where we've talked about this. So that's where I'll stop, and I'm happy to answer questions, but I think again, primarily the action tonight is to hear you all's thoughts and conversations about where we go from here. And one thought is a good January agenda item where we go through the strategic plan, and we can even bring that 12-point plan into the conversation, and the kiosk data that Commissioner Barnett mentioned, all of those things. and then have a good conversation about where you all see this going, so that we can have a chapter 10 that reflects the work that we all want to do together, to use Commissioner Seller's word, more intentional in the work that we're doing in this area. So I'll stop again and answer any questions.
Thank you, Casey. This is Commissioner Sellers. I'm glad you brought that up. I did take some time to go through some of the initial PowerPoint presentation on the strategic plan, and I know that you provided a link to the report as well. I know with the holiday coming up, us putting these items on the agenda, as far as for reporting out, I think would be good. But I would like to hear from some of the other commissioners as far as an opportunity for us to take a deeper dive into this. It's this specifically being the strategic plan, so that we could kind of go through it together as a group, and again, kind of read through and glean some things from it that we feel like could align with the work that we are as a commission asked to do, or at least propose opportunities for us to add to that responsibility. I'd hate to put it on the agenda as an agenda item, because those typically make for very lengthy meetings. But perhaps propose an opportunity for us to meet during a special meeting, maybe a retreat, or just a couple of hours where we focus strictly on the strategic plan and being able to digest that and ask questions of city staff as it relates to our responsibilities, and try to take it away from the agenda piece, but give it its own special meeting. So again, that's what my mind is thinking as far as what would be beneficial for me. But I would like to hear from the commissioners as far as their thoughts on this, the strategic plan, and looking at our roles and responsibilities as it relates to these items moving forward.
This is Commissioner Barnett. I really like that idea. I want to remind everyone, for the first time since I've been on the commission, we've been meeting every month. It's been a lot. It's been significantly more time than the commission is used to, since we usually meet quarterly. And so while I'm excited to get back to meeting quarterly starting in January, I do think that Commissioner Sellers has a really good point in that we should probably maybe have our January meeting, but set aside a special meeting either later in the month or in February to have just how do we move forward from here meeting on the strategic plan. And I think kind of go back to what then Mayor Ananda said, re-energize and refocus our commission. So I would agree with having a special meeting in January or February, strictly focused on the strategic plan.
Thank you, Commissioner Barnett. Are there any other comments from commissioners?
This is Commissioner Stevens. What I'm hoping for the next year is that now that we have folks that are, it seems like helping us to understand what our job is, that we can figure out what kind of power we do and don't have, and that we can like start doing for real stuff. Because I mean, I love us, and I also get frustrated because I feel like for so many years we've been working together now, and now we're just realizing that we can do stuff because we were led a different way with a different understanding. And frankly, that gets me a little heated. because I feel like we wasted so much time just talking. And what I don't want us to do is, especially the marginalized identities in here, I don't want the marginalized identities in here to have to do more emotional labor when we have no power, and for it to just be an education session for no reason. That's super frustrating. And also that happens in the workplace. If we wanted to do that, we should just go to work. And so what I'm hoping for in the new year is for us to actually be about that business, because I just feel like if it's our job to like be the voice of the people that are struggling in the community, we need to have money for that. We need to be able to allocate that. And we need to be able to make recommendations that actually hold clout. Otherwise it turns into like the police advisory board, which we found out doesn't actually, unless I'm incorrect, doesn't actually make recommendations or have any power. I'm not on the board for that. That's not why we do this work in the community. We're hoping to bring it here and be like, okay, well, if people are feeling some kind of way, like Mr. Flowers, if they're feeling some kind of way, they can come say stuff and it actually matters and we can do things with it. I'm just realizing how disempowered we have been for the last 2 years. And I think it's time for a change. So I'm thankful for Dr. Muhammad and for Representative Haswood being here. And I'm hoping that we can do the work because everybody's too tired. We're in a pandemic, like things are going badly. People are struggling and we don't have any extra energy to give for it to be for nothing. I think the people in Lawrence deserve better than that.
Thank you, Commissioner Stevens. And I definitely echo some of your sentiments. I think since joining the board in August, I think this process has given me a little bit more global perspective on the roles and responsibilities of this commission, what opportunities are there for us to expand on that, but also to challenge that. And I've seen that from several of the commissioners who are on this board who have served in way longer capacities than I have. What excites me about this work moving forward is that we have a great deal of information that's going to come at us. And I think that information, it becomes our onus to synthesize it. And so I'm excited about that because again, I get it. I started this process frustrated with talk and that I want to see action. And I think we're going to get some information that's going to help us be able to usher that in. And so while I know we may be going back to meeting quarterly, I really would like for us to have some time to dig into this and to be able to have those conversations in a way that we have the individuals that are here on this call with us so that we can get a different perspective, because we are in a unique opportunity and I think we can not capitalize, but we can actually do some great work with the makeup that we have right now. So yeah.
This is Commissioner Barnett. So I'm so sorry. You go ahead. I was just going to make a motion that we go ahead and do the special meeting.
Commissioner Haswood, exactly what I was going in the direction of. I agree that the strategic plan needs the time and effort that we all can put into it. And I think this would be a great momentum forward and energy forward for what we can do in the next year.
Thank you, Commissioner Barnett, Commissioner Haswood. Casey, as far as the motion to have a special meeting, do we need to put a caveat in there as to when we would like to, or as far as to that city staff will send out some type of doodle poll to get everyone's availability?
This is Casey Toomey, Assistant City Manager. I'm a big fan of the doodle poll, unless you all have calendars right now. And given that there's some members who aren't in attendance, it seems like a doodle poll might be a good way to go. So I think if you just, have a motion, and we may want to, have this motion just be receive this report and then have a conversation about calendar. I can't remember if that's on our agenda. I know at one point we had talked about putting it on there. So we may want to have a whole separate conversation, but I think there's no wrong motion. I'll put it like that.
So this is Commissioner Sellers. We need to have a motion to receive the report and then a separate motion to have the special meeting as determined by polling or something of that sort.
Yeah, again, this Casey Toomey, Assistant City Manager. I do see that discussion of our calendar is an agenda item, so maybe we can just roll all of that into a motion under that item about the calendar. And I don't even think you need a motion for receiving the report unless there's any action that you want other than that special meeting.
Thank you, Casey. Commissioner Sellers. So with that being said, is there any other comments or questions in regards to action item number 5? All right, hearing none, we will move on to commission items. Item number 1, receive and update report on CARES Act funding for homeless prevention and housing stabilization programs.
This is Scott Wagner, legal analyst again. I have the report on this item, Chair Sellers. I believe at our last meeting, it was Commissioner Stevens asked about the availability of some special funds that we had received from HUD earlier in the year, and as to whether those funds could be reallocated. The short answer to that is the $10,000 grant was received under a different pot of funds from HUD. They were allocated under fair housing enforcement and education funds, and staff had to submit a special application for those funds we received. So it wouldn't be possible to reallocate those funds to a homeless prevention, I think was probably the intent of Commissioner Stevens' question that night. But I did want to provide an update on the entirety of CARES Act and other sources of funds that are going into the community because there have been some significant updates from when we last talked about this back in August. So that's what the staff report covers tonight. I don't think in the interest of time, I'll go into all the details, but I'll just highlight a couple of the elements from my staff report. All in all, Douglas County was awarded about $25 million from the state in CARES Act funding. And of that amount, $2.5 million was allocated to housing and human services, and included in that category was $1.9 million for rent, mortgage, and utility assistance through various Douglas County agencies. And to highlight, one of the programs was the Housing Stabilization Collaborative, and that program was awarded $850,000 in CARES Act funding. I did reach out to Rebecca Buford, the director of Tennis to Homeowners, who's one of the co-partners of that collaborative, and I have a report from her. And this was as of Monday, November 30th. She stated that 430 households were served through November, with almost all of the $850,000 spent already. They were able to apply for another $135,000 from the county from some other programs that initially had been awarded funds, but were not able to spend it all by the December 31st deadline of the CARES Act. And that will allow them to keep another 60 households currently on the Housing Stabilization Collaborative waiting list. So that's just an update on that particular program. The city also opened the houseless campsite at the location of Woody Park in early November. The city was awarded $374,000 in CARES Act funding to fund that site through the end of December. And then we have also applied from the state for an additional $150,000 to extend operations until March 2021, and we think we'll be able to indeed receive that funding from the state to extend that program. I know that the campsite as of last week was basically full. It has the capacity to house about 20 individuals. And the last staff discussion I had heard on that site was that already 2 individuals had been moved into permanent housing. Staff at that site works in conjunction with the Burt Nash HOT team, the homeless outreach team, to actively work to find residents of that camp permanent housing. And so it's not intended to be a permanent camp. It's to work with individuals to get them the resources they need to find supportive housing. The rest of the staff memo talks about just the additional community resources that have been applied for and received regarding the prevention of homelessness and providing mortgage and rent assistance in the community. I believe there was also a story in today's Journal World about that program as well. So just hopefully an answer to Commissioner Stevens' question and an update on the amount of resources that staff in various capacities, along with a lot of partner agencies in Douglas County, are putting into the community to hopefully get us past this pandemic and assist people that really need help.
Thank you, Scott. This is Commissioner Sellers. Do we have any questions for Scott in regards to the report? Scott, I have one quick question in regards to the 1.9 million and that spend down, knowing that we have the deadline coming up. Do we know, are we close to exhausting all of those funds? I didn't know if there was, I didn't look to see on the dashboard if there's somewhere to see how close are we to utilizing those dollars.
Yeah, Scott Wagner, legal analyst again. I, at this moment, don't know off the top of my head, but I know that Jill Jolicoeur, who is an assistant county administrator, has been closely monitoring the status of those funds, and I can check in with her. It was certainly the intent of Douglas County to make sure that all those funds were expended pursuant to the program requirements, but I can get a report back out to the commission on the status of that.
Thank you. This is Commissioner Sellers.
This is Commissioner Stevens. Commissioner Sellers, is it okay if I ask a question? Okay. Scott, thanks for the report. I was just wondering, because there is a close correlation with individuals experiencing COVID-related realities and the same individuals be experiencing houselessness, I was wondering if we can ask the city to allocate something, any kind of funding or anything like that, or find it or make it available or something for individuals, because as we see, countries doing a pretty terrible job of, ending the pandemic and doing things that we need to. And I don't want people to freeze to death and also experience houselessness and also experience COVID-related death. Like I'm tired of seeing this, and I'm wondering if the city can do something. I mean, if we hear about funding all the time, and if there was ever a time, it's now. And we're in winter and it's really cold outside, and I just know that shelter is a basic human right, and I think that we deserve that. So that's all. Thank you.
This is Scott Wagner, Assistant City Manager. Casey Toomey may have a better response to that question, Commissioner Stevens. So I'll turn it over to her.
This is Casey Toomey, Assistant City Manager. I guess in addition to the $1.5 million that Scott just kind of outlined, I know there are efforts underway to, and Scott, I'm sorry, I was looking up a kiosk update while you were giving your report, so you may have mentioned this, but I know there's efforts at a winter shelter program that are underway to make sure that folks are in a hotel as opposed to just being outside. And so I don't know if I'm getting at an answer to your question or not, but if you're looking for an additional dollars, I mean, I think the board could certainly make that request or could submit a, a memo at a future meeting that we could put in front of you all that said, we encourage the city to find dollars to reallocate. I would say that the city commission is always thankful when those requests come forward to that it is a reallocation. If there's an area that you can identify to reallocate, that's helpful for the commission, because in a vacuum, it's easier to have those conversations than when the city budget is already allocated. The city budget has taken a hit from COVID as well. And so we're talking about spending down fund balance dollars and reserve dollars. So any, you can certainly make that request. And like I said, I think the city commission is always thankful when it comes along with, we think this should be a higher priority than that.
Thank you, Casey. This is Commissioner Sellers. And I know Commissioner Stevens brings up an excellent point. I know the reason why I asked where we were with our numbers as far as the 1.9 for the assistance, since we know that it's unsure whether or not this week or next week we will hear from the federal government if there's an extension on those CARES Act dollars. I know that counties are being very creative with how they maximize those dollars so that I don't want to say that they're returning it, but that they're able to maximize them in a way that they're spending them in areas where they can. And so knowing where we are with those dollars, with the housing support, rental support, and utility support, I didn't know if there's some indication there with the city, not even with the city, with the county, at least. Has there been any plans made to possibly pivot some of those dollars within the county so that we're not necessarily returning any money to the recovery office and that we're utilizing all $25 million here in the county?
This is Assistant City Manager Casey Toomey, and yes, Commissioner Sellers, the County Commission already took action at one of their recent meetings where they did just that. So they had reached out, for example, to us about our utilities assistance program, and well, we had originally been awarded $500,000. We had only received applications and had been able to expend, I won't get the exact number, somewhere in the $150,000 range. So they said, okay, well, how much do you think you're going to be able to spend by December 30th? Or no, I'm sorry. They said, okay, well, how much can you spend by an earlier date in December? I think it was December 6th, maybe. And so we said, well, based on what we've spent to date, we're confident we'll spend $200,000. We thought that was a, okay, well, you have till December 6th to do $200,000 and then until the 30th to do the rest. And the county commission said, okay, if you can only do $200,000, we would rather reallocate that now than it be left on the table. So the county commission is actively doing that. There's a good memo out on the county commission that explains where they moved it to.
Okay. All right, this is Commissioner Sellers. Yeah, because I will go back and review that reallocation, because I think, to speak to Commissioner Stevens' point, if there is some opportunity, because this is moving. I know that initial county reports were due last week to the recovery office, and that's probably why there was such a move to get that money reallocated by the 6th. And so if there's an opportunity there for us to look at that county reallocation and to come back and say, we would really like to see funding move to this portion to support houselessness in the capacity as Commissioner Stevens spoke to. I think there's that opportunity there as well. So does anybody have any other questions in regards to the report from Mr. Wagner?
This is Commissioner Bloxham. My question is really specific to, I feel like Commissioner Stevens was really quite clear on his request of if there is any additional monies, can we as a commission put it towards houselessness? And I don't know if that made it. So can you clarify to me how, if there's a certain, I mean, how was it ever even mentioned or asked in front of the right boards, or is this just a report on where the money already went to? Because I just feel like it's after the fact, and I think the conversation was real clear. Can we put those monies to use? So I appreciate the report. There's nothing wrong with the report and what you did. How can we be assured as a commission that if we have a specific request, especially if it falls under what we do as a body, that somebody's hearing it, besides just asking ourselves, I guess.
This is Scott Wagner, legal analyst. I interpreted Commissioner Stevens' question last month was specifically directed to the $10,000 that was awarded in the HUD allocation that went out in the spring of this year. And I indicated earlier, I guess, that those funds were allocated through a very specific program of HUD for fair housing enforcement activities. And we had to submit a grant application under that specific program of HUD. So under that specific program, we can't reallocate those dollars. And I also, I guess, use that opportunity to update the commission on the previous report that I had provided back in August to try to explain the gamut of funding that's flowing into Douglas County with CARES Act funding and other federal stimulus programs that's going on. Maybe that didn't completely answer your question, Commissioner Bloxham. You know, I think as Assistant City Manager Toomey spelled out, there are funds that this body could request from the city for that effort, but that would require, you know, a reallocation of dollars that's already been budgeted.
Understood. Thank you for the clarification.
This is Commissioner Haswood. Can you tell me where in the outline where the dollars are going to for houseless individuals to get actual homes?
This is Assistant City Manager Casey Toomey. I'm not sure if you mean permanent homes that they own or permanent supportive housing, or talk a little bit more about that so we can better understand your question, Commissioner.
Okay, Commissioner Haswood. Yeah, that's what I was kind of hoping to see, if where in this budget that, you know, from houseless individuals to permanent housing, trying to, you know, bridge that gap. You said that the Camp Woody is at capacity, you know, kind of seeing where we can get those houseless individuals into permanent housing. Is that in the outline of that was provided?
This is Scott Wagner, legal analyst. No, probably not specifically, Commissioner Haswood. This report really identified some of the emergency funding to provide people to either pay their utility bills or pay their mortgage to stay in the homes that they had. There is also another advisory body with the city, the Affordable Housing Advisory Board, called AHAB, that is actively working on those issues for the city. And I would probably suggest that at some point in 2021, it would be good for this board to get an update on the gamut of activities that AHAB is undertaking. I think they had a meeting today, actually earlier today, to provide affordable housing, permanent housing for the community. This community supported a sales tax measure that's providing a income stream to provide permanent affordable housing in Lawrence. And that's a really good question. And we can certainly provide an update on AHAB's activities to this body in the future.
Thank you so much. And Commissioner Haswood again, does this commission and this overall budget reflect domestic survivors?
This is Assistant City Manager Casey Toomey. I don't necessarily know that any of these CARES Act funds that we referenced in this staff report do. I'm trying to look through the memo and see. I don't see the Willow listed here. I'm not sure that they didn't without the full listing of all of the county CARES Act funding allocations. Scott, I don't know if you know specifically. The Willow is the one that came to my mind. I know there are other folks that work with that population, but I don't know, Scott, again, if you have any.
This is Scott Wagner, legal analyst. I don't know off the top of my head if an organization like the Willow received CARES Act funding, but I know that the city of Lawrence supports the work of the Willow through a couple of different revenue streams, Commissioner Haswood, that are reflected in the city's annual budget each year.
Thank you.
Any other questions in regards to the report? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to action item number 2 under commission items, discussion of calendar for 2021 meetings. I don't know, Scott, Casey.
This is Scott Wagner, legal analyst again. I might just preference the comments on this item because we have several new commissioners, is that pursuant to our bylaws, this board traditionally has met quarterly, 4 times each year. Traditionally, the board has met in February, the 3rd Thursday in February, May, August, and November of each year. And this year, beginning in June, as we talked about earlier, we've been meeting monthly. So we thought this was a good time to have this discussion as we approach the end of the year, moving into 2021.
Thank you, Scott. This is Commissioner Sellers. So commissioners, discussion on the board is to review our original scheduling as quarterly, and then to hear from everyone as far as, are we comfortable with moving with that for the 2021 calendar, or is there something different that commissioners would like to propose?
This is Commissioner Bloxham. I think that it would be helpful to me before making any decisions about what's needed. If we get some clear, after that special meeting, I'd be more comfortable voting to say whether or not quarterly is going to be enough, because I don't know. I mean, it's not clear to me right now. And that's just where I'm at with it. It is a lot of work. I'm tired. I know we all are. But I want to make sure that we're adjusting our schedules to meet the needs of whatever is decided as a board that we're going to do.
Thank you, Commissioner Bloxham. This is Commissioner Sellers. I guess my question would be, Scott and Casey, once we identify the date for our special meeting, well, I guess I want to back up real quick. So if we're wanting to, if it appeases the commission that we wait till after that special meeting to set our calendar for the year, should we continue with the same model of meeting monthly and schedule? And I'm asking this to Scott and Casey while asking it simultaneously to the commission, that we propose meeting again in January, or do we want January to be our special meeting and then we come back and have our meeting in February and we set our agenda there? So I'm asking questions while secretly hinting to the commission what we want to do moving forward.
This is Scott Wagner again, legal analyst. Again, pursuant to the commission's bylaws, you do meet quarterly on the third Thursday of each month. So I would probably say that if you're going to meet in January, it will be a special meeting, and you're free to call that pursuant to your bylaws, but you would need to take a vote, I think, tonight to call that special meeting. And then pursuant to our earlier discussion, staff will take a doodle poll to figure out when would be the best time to meet in January.
Thank you, Scott. This is Commissioner Sellers. Another question before we get to our motion. Since pursuant to bylaws, we are meeting the third Thursday. Have those dates been reserved on the city calendar as far as utilization of resources? Because I know we ran into that here in the later part of the year. So I just wanted to ensure that while we may not permanently ink our schedule, that at least those third Thursdays for those 4 months are already on the calendar.
This is Assistant City Manager Casey Toomey. Thanks for bringing that up. I know that there are several other boards and commissions that meet on this same day and same time. And I think if we want to continue with this same day of the month, a request was made to see if we could push the start time to either, I'm going to say later. Does that seem right, Scott? Because there was another board that PTAC where we kept bumping up. And so to allow time for transition and taping, if we could push the start time to later, if we wanted to continue to do it on the third Monday.
This is Scott Wagner. Actually, on the third Thursday, it was Historic Resources, the other HRC that has a standing meeting. And then we have been bumping into the Public Transit Advisory Commission meeting on the third Monday at times.
So this is, thank you, Scott and Casey. So this is Commissioner Sellers. So we would need to possibly secure the third Monday for February, May, August, and November. So at least we have those on the calendar for 6 o'clock. Or were we keeping with it's 5:30 where we are now? Does that work, or do we need to look at pushing it back to 6 o'clock?
My recollection is pushing it back to 6 o'clock was the request.
Okay. So where we stand now, if we, depending on the outcome of our special meeting, regardless if we go monthly, quarterly, bi-monthly, however, it's going to be the third Monday at 6 p.m. And
Assistant City Manager Casey Toomey, if that works for the majority of the board.
if it works, right. So I'm just trying to let everybody know moving forward, regardless, if we meet quarterly or monthly, it would, sticking with our current schedule of the third Monday, it would have to be at 6 p.m. But we're not committing to that. We're not committing to our 2021 calendar right now, but we do need to discuss and place a motion if we would like to have a special meeting in January. So I would need a motion for that.
Commissioner Logan,
go ahead.
I motion that we have a special meeting in January for the commission.
Thank you, Commissioner Logan. This is Commissioner Sellers. So I have a second.
This is Commissioner Stevens. I second that motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Stevens. Casey, do we need to add a friendly that the date would be determined based on later time, or just as it stands?
So you didn't establish a time, or you did?
We didn't establish a time, but we do need to establish a.
I think that would be helpful.
Okay. So going back to the original motion, Commissioner Logan, this is Commissioner Sellers, if we need to amend it, I think to make Casey's job a little bit easier as far as figuring out a day, we may need to figure out a time that works for everyone. So we made a doodle poll for a specific day, but are there times, do we need to have a specific time as far as we want something in the morning, weekend, same time as we currently meet?
Commissioner Logan here. Are we looking toward the 6 o'clock start time now, even for our special meeting, as well as going forward for the future Human Relations Commission meeting?
This is Commissioner Sellers. So Casey, if we were hypothetically looking at the third Monday in January, would we need to look at a 6 o'clock time, or could we keep the 5:30 time? That's actually a holiday, by the way.
I was just gonna say, I think that's Martin Luther King Day.
Yeah.
So.
And I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but I think Commissioner Stevens is out that day.
This is Commissioner Stevens. That's correct.
So I guess to move the discussion along, do we want to, are commissioners thinking for this special meeting, can we do something during the week, or would you feel comfortable with doing something on a weekend, such i.e. a Saturday morning?
This is Commissioner Bloxham. Well, this is going to be a public meeting, correct? Yes. Okay. So I think we need to consider that it's a public meeting. There's a reason why we've had it at this time. We've changed days before, but just for the flexibility and ease of making sure that we have public involvement and that it's available to people, I think it's important that we keep it an evening time and probably not a weekend time, but I might be wrong. That's just my opinion. So keeping it during the week at 5:30, especially since it's been that for so long. It used to be 11:30 on a Thursday, which was not good for anyone. So for the sake of argument, because it's a public meeting, we need to consider that as well.
Right. Thank you, Commissioner Bloxham. I say that because we do have a commissioner who is an elected official, and not knowing how the legislature is going to function this year, and that'll be the second week of the second week, starting of the second week of the legislature, there may be committee meetings that run into that evening time. So I want to be respectful of that. I know that there have been other commissions that have held special meetings and retreats on the weekend. So I see what you're saying in regards to having them in the evening so that the public is aware. The fact that these meetings are recorded, that does give it the public component, and I don't want us to lose sight of that. But I don't want to put Commissioner Haswood on the spot, but I know this being your junior year, and that being your second week starting in the legislature, I would like to hear what, as far as what your schedule is looking like, or I'd like to hear from everyone. Just where do you feel comfortable doing this? Would it be during the week? Is it morning, afternoon, evening, or are we looking at a Saturday? That's the only way we're going to get this hammered out.
Commissioner Haswood here. I don't know my committee's assignments yet, but I anticipate that, something at 6 p.m. is something that I would be able to excuse myself from after a commission. If there's anything else in the evening, I'm more than happy to put this as a priority after my state legislative commission duties.
This is Commissioner Bloxham. Do we even have a date? Are we looking at it? I'm just really confused. Why does it have to be the second Monday, or what? I think it's a special meeting, right?
Right. Commissioner Bloxham, this is Commissioner Sellers. It doesn't have to be. That's typically when we've been meeting. So I didn't know if we wanted to keep that as far as being uniform. But if there are other dates, I know that some of us don't have our schedules in front of us. And I know with my schedule with the state, it can fluctuate. So anything that I can have some repetition and be used to having it on that third Thursday, that third Monday, that would work. But that is a holiday, and I want to be respectful of the holiday and those who serve on the commission. So if we look at the third Tuesday at 6 p.m., or if we're just wanting to do 6 p.m., I mean, I think we wanted to be respectful that there are commissioners who aren't here, so we didn't want to pick a day. But if we're comfortable doing it at 6 p.m., whether it's during the weekend or during the week, I think that's what we're trying to get to.
Chair Sellers, this is Casey Toomey, Assistant City Manager. So I've pulled up the calendar that I'm 99.9% sure is the way to see if this room is available. And it appears that somebody has already blocked Monday, January 11th at our normal time, 5:30 to 7, for a Human Relations Commission meeting. I don't know why that was done. My guess is because of the holiday, and so they bumped it up a week. But that is on a calendar for this room. So just to throw that out there. It doesn't have to be for anything other than this special meeting, and then you all can fall back to your third Monday, third Thursday, second Friday, whatever. But just a reminder for folks that the key to this discussion has been this room, because it's the one room that we have capability for broadcasting. So as long as we're under our COVID restrictions and we continue to require this technology, it really limits our options, because we then have to compete with, I think we have, I want to say 36 advisory boards and commissions that have to plan meetings. So we might want to take that January 11th date and run with it.
Sounds good. This is Commissioner Sellers. So it looks like we have the scheduling gods have answered our prayers, and that January 11th at 5:30 is already on the books. So could I get a motion to schedule a special meeting for January 11th at 5:30 with the Human Relations Commission? Commissioner Logan, perhaps?
I motion that we take the allotted time that's set aside for the Human Relations Commission for a special meeting on January 11th at 5:30.
Wonderful. Thank you, Commissioner Logan. Can I get a second?
This is Commissioner Stevens. I second that motion.
Wonderful. The request has been moved and seconded. Now for a roll call vote, Commissioner Logan.
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett.
Aye.
Commissioner Haswood.
Aye.
Commissioner Bluxham.
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens.
Aye.
And Commissioner Sellers. Aye. So with a unanimous vote of 6-0, we have scheduled our special meeting for January 6th at 5:30 p.m.
January 11th.
January 11th. What did I say? The 6th? I don't know. It wasn't the 11th. Thanks, Casey. This is Commissioner Sellers.
And this, Casey Toomey, just to clarify, the special meeting, that agenda is the strategic plan? Okay.
That is correct, Casey. This is Commissioner Sellers. All right, we've now reached the portion of our agenda, which is public comments. Do I need to read the public comment disclaimer? I always ask and I never say that we need to do it.
This is Scott Wagner, legal analyst. No, we just have Mr. Flowers, I think, unless someone is physically present in the commission chambers to make public comment tonight, Chair.
All right, so we don't have anyone present in the chamber, but we did have Commissioner Flowers. I mean, not Commissioner Flowers, sorry. We've had Mr. Flowers here, who also provided written comments as well. So Mr. Flowers, you have the floor.
Yeah, I'm just going to disagree with some of the staff's assessment from earlier. I sent an email about it. Basically, I think that the call for the HRC to review city ordinances for inequitable impact is different from what from what Citygate's doing. At the October 20th City Commission meeting, I was there and I asked about Citygate looking at ordinances. And when I brought that up, I was thinking in addition to what the HRC was already doing. And then when the mayor, see, here's the thing, I'm not quite sure what exactly the mayor wants y'all to do. I think you all should reach out to the City Commission and find out exactly what the June 2nd call for the HRC to look at the inequitable impacts means. Because at the October 20th meeting, Ananda mentioned reviewing the city ordinances for inequitable impact and then also decriminalization. And from what I got is that the Citygate is looking at the decriminalization aspect of it. And one of the examples I gave was like for topless women, you all could find that it's sexist and it's not fair to treat a woman's body different from a man's. But the Citygate, what if they look at how the ordinances, like how they're prosecuted, and that they find the only time people are being charged with it is in addition when they're having sex in public. And what if they find, well, that we should get rid of this and just have it be like just prosecute people for having sex in public. That's a different kind. I mean, they're both saying that this should end, but the reason behind, like the reason why, there'd be two different reasons, I guess, because the decriminalization's kind of different than inequitable, like the inequitable impact. Because finding something sexist doesn't necessarily mean to decriminalize women being topless. It could be to add, making it so that men can't go topless either, which is not decriminalization. It's just from what I gathered is you guys were taxed just to review ordinances for inequitable impacts. So also, I'm just wondering, does that mean you guys even make recommendations about whether to change the ordinances or not? Maybe it's just you guys are finding, like, looking for inequitable impact. And then what you guys find, then the City Commission can use in addition to what the Citygate finds. Because also you guys are using the GARE toolkit, I think. I mean, Citygate, there was nothing said about GARE at all. So that aspect might not even be looked at all by Citygate. And then also there's this part about staff reviewing stuff, and which, okay, the commission has tasked that. I'm not going to argue about that, but if it's city staff, it could just be prosecutors, like prosecutors looking for, like prosecutors reforming themselves, basically. I'm not for that. And I think having the HRC in addition to all that is what we need. And earlier, Commissioner Stevens said something about getting stuff, like actually doing stuff. And I don't think you guys should be giving up your power. That's what I think it is. I think it's the prosecutors trying to get you guys out of the picture. I wouldn't be giving up my power. I'd be fighting for it. I'd be asking the City Commission to keep being able to review ordinances. It's not like you guys can change them, but you can at least look at it and then present to the city, this is how this affects these marginalized communities, basically. So I just want to throw that out there. I think you guys should totally ask for clarification from the City Commission. And I think you guys should try to fight for the right to at least review ordinances and look for the inequitable impact. So just want to throw that out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Flowers. Well, I do appreciate your comments, and was able to read your written testimony that you provided earlier today as well. Are there any commissioners that would like to respond to Mr. Flowers' comments this evening?
This is Commissioner Blackson. Mr. Flowers, you were heard, and I appreciate your ongoing participation in.
being actively involved in your civic engagement, sir. All right. We have reached the end of our agenda.
Commissioner Sellers, this is Casey Toomey, Assistant City Manager. This isn't on the agenda, but I did want to give you all a brief kiosk update if you.
Yes, I was just about to ask about that, so thank you for that.
So the kiosks were placed out on December 2nd and will be in their locations until December 30th. There were 8. We placed 4 at city recreation centers or facilities. So the East Lawrence Center, Holcomb Recreation Center, the Indoor Aquatic Center, and Sports Pavilion Lawrence. We put 1 here at City Hall. We put 1 at Municipal Court. We put 1 at the Lawrence Public Library and 1 at the Community Health Building. We've had 4 questions, I think, that have cycled through. Again, there's 10 total, and they'll be up for 3 days apiece. And our number of responses has ranged from 85 was the lowest and 125 was the highest. The questions also have been placed on Lawrence Listens, which is our online survey platform. So folks who aren't out and about can, or aren't comfortable using the touch screens are able to go on and participate that way. I pulled that up earlier, and we've had 59 responses to the online version. So as I said, the kiosk will be in place till the 30th, and then they have to go back to KU and back to, I think she told me they were from Denmark or somewhere. And then the survey questions, it took us a little longer to get those posted. So we're going to leave those up through January 8th. So I wanted to provide that update to all of you. So anticipate having some data back probably now. Well, we might be able to have it turned around by the 11th. As I said, that January 8th, that sounded kind of close to the 11th, but we might be able to have that for that special meeting for you all on the 11th.
Thank you, Casey. And this is Commissioner Sellers. On the Lawrence Listens website, the survey is in its entirety. All 10 questions are presented. Okay.
That is correct.
All right. And I do know that the Journal World did produce an article on that if no one has seen it. So feel free to share that with your networks, your communities, your tribes, so that we can get as much feedback and input from the community as possible on the survey. Again, if you go through the kiosk, they cycle every 3 days. If you use Lawrence Listen, you'll be able to respond to all 10 questions. All right. Seeing that there's no other additional items on the agenda, are there any other questions, comments, or concerns from commissioners before we close? All right, seeing none, then we will adjourn this meeting at 7:29 p.m. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, city staff. See you in January, and have a wonderful evening and a great holiday season.